I'm Janelle Nanos, business reporter with the Boston Globe, and this is Bold Types, Conversations with Boston's Business Leaders. Today, I'm talking with Bob Rivers, Chair and CEO of Eastern Bank.
Well, we are in the parking lot of what was the Stoughton branch of Randolph Savings Bank, where I started my banking career 37 years ago as a teller.
I'd love to know a little bit more about your first experiences in the bank, but I also want to know more about your experiences growing up here in Stoughton. So talk to me a little bit about the bank job at the outset.
Bank job at the outset was a lot of fun in a lot of ways, and it was much better than I ever thought it would be. It was also the way that I met the person that hired me for the other job that I had when I was in college, which was cleaning bank branches, which was a perfect job for a college student because it could be done at night, really at any time, as long as the place was clean and ready to go at 8 a.m. the next morning.
I know you went into banking thinking, okay, this is the career path, but you also had really high ambitions for yourself. I think you wanted to be president of a bank by age 40, and you accomplished that by what, 42?
That's right,
Okay.
that's right.
So not too bad, not too far
Well,
off.
the great irony of that story is
Yeah.
I wrote that term paper when I was 22 as a senior in Stonehill College. And again, not serious about going into banking. But it was an assignment by a professor there, my mentor there, Bill Burke at Stonehill, who gave us an assignment to write a business plan for our lives and go through all the steps to achieve it with an ultimate goal. And his whole idea was aim high. And so I wrote down that I was going to be the president of the largest bank based in Boston by the time I was 40. Which was an insane assertion at the time. One, I wasn't really all that serious about banking. Two, I had no connections in banking whatsoever. My family was not in banking. There was no reason to think that I would get to that particular level. But despite all that, I decided I was going to put this goal out there in my paper, not because I believed it would ever happen, but because that was the assignment. This is the Boston office of the Windwalker Group, and the owner, leader, CEO of the Windwalker Group is Herbie Duvernay.
So why did we decide to sit here in his office versus one of your offices somewhere or a bank branch somewhere? Talk with me a little bit about the initiative that you have to invest in business owners like Herbie.
Back a few years ago, we actually took $10 million from our charitable foundation and established a new foundation called the Foundation for Business Equity. And really the idea for the Foundation for Business Equity was born and inspired by a report done by the Federal Reserve Bank of Boston called The Color of Money. And really the headliner in The Color of Money in pointing out the extreme racial disparities in terms of income and wealth here in Boston was a statistic that's becoming increasingly known that white households here in the Boston area have an average net worth of $247,500 as opposed to black households that have an average net worth of only $8. So we really launched the Foundation for Business Equity and various programs related to it to help in some way address that gap. And being the leading small business lender here in Massachusetts, the obvious way for us to do that was to take our own expertise in what we do as a business, combined with the passion and interests of our mission, and really focus on small businesses, specifically small businesses of color, to help them scale here in the Boston area as a means of not only creating wealth for those owners and leaders and key principals, but also create more jobs with life-sustaining wages in communities that really need them.
Obviously, you're focusing on Boston here with the Equity Fund, but you're also thinking a lot about gateway cities, and you're doing a lot of work in the surrounding area and greater Boston to make sure that those opportunities are available there as well. Talk to me a little bit about those initiatives.
We at Eastern have locations now in 10 of the 26 gateway cities here in Massachusetts. And sadly, though, many of those areas are really underrepresented, underfunded, and aren't as economically robust as many of the communities here immediately around Boston. Our location when we opened in Chelsea in 2008 was the first in over a decade for a full-service banking office to be located there. When we opened in Lawrence a few years later, we were the first to do so in over 23 years.
You've spoken publicly about in support of legislation that would essentially require companies to put more diversity on their boards. Talk to me a little bit about that, because I know it's not an easy position to take.
No, it's certainly not a popular one,
Yeah.
and certainly business resists, in effect, the government telling it what to do in many cases, and certainly that has been the pushback on this legislation as well. But I think regulation, and I'm not a fan of it, but regulation in many cases becomes sadly necessary when business doesn't do the things that it really should do or fast enough.
We call this series Bold Types. So I always like to ask if there was a moment in your career that you had to make a bold decision.
I'm sure there are some things that we have done, positions that the company and I have taken that some would consider bold, but I don't consider it that way at all. I consider it our opportunity, our responsibility, our duty to speak out on behalf of these issues, so it feels very natural. It's certainly something that my heart is very much aligned towards and driven towards, so it never feels bold at all. So when you ask me, can I think of one time, one decision that I've made that is bold? Actually, no.
I wanted to ask you about a bold move that you made, and this was when there was the ballot initiative about transgender rights here in Massachusetts. You were one of the most vocal people on the issue, not just in the business community, but in Massachusetts. Why did you feel like it was an important issue for Eastern Bank to take on?
It certainly was an important issue for a lot of reasons. First of all, Eastern has been an advocate for the transgender community. So certainly standing up and advocating for the rights of that community is something that we've done for a very long period of time. But in this particular case, the thing that motivated me in addition to that was really my fear of having this vote go the other way. Mm-hmm. This was an issue, yet again, of right and smart. Mm-hmm. It is certainly the right thing to do to preserve the rights for all people here in our country, but also it was a smart thing to do as well.
Boston is a city that unfortunately has a bit of a reputation as being a place where it's not as welcoming necessarily to people of color. What do you think the business community can do to ensure that the reputation changes?
Very talented people are looking at this city and deciding not to come here, certainly for a variety of reasons, but this reputation is one of them. Because they look up at the power structure here, they look up who's really leading the private sector, and they see people that look like me, not like them. And that's not a positive sign. That was one of the driving reasons, honestly, over 10 years ago, why we diversified our board very radically since that time, because we were concerned as a matter of talent attraction that we would be sending the same message if we didn't do the same.
You know, when you think about the Boston of the future, what do you want to see?
Certainly, I want to see people in the seat that I happen to hold not look like me. I want to see far more women, far more people of color, far more members of the LGBTQ community in positions of power in the private sector, as the CEO, in the C-suite, on the boards than we have today. That's the Boston I want to see.